The House will be in order. The clerk will call the roll.
Appleton, Barkis, Bergquist, Blake, Bainke, Caldeer, Callan, Chambers, Chandler, Chapman, Cody, Corey, Davis, DeBolt, Dent, Dolio, Dolan, Dufault, Dye, Intiman, Eslick, Fye, Fitzgibbon, Frame, Gildon, Gaynor, Goodman, Graham, Gregerson, Griffey, Hanson, Harris, Hoff, Hudgens, Irwin, Jenkins, Kilduff, Kirby, Klippert, Kloba, Kraft, Kretz, Levitt, Lakanoff, Lovick, McEwen, Macri, Maycumber, McCaslin, Meade, Morgan, Morris, Mossbrucker, Orcutt, Ormsby, Ortiz-Self, Orwell, Paul, Pellicciati, Peterson, Pettigrew, Paulette, Ramos, Reeves, Riccelli, Robinson, Rude, Ryu, Santos, Schmick, Sells, Sen, Shea, Shoemake, Slatter, Smith, Springer, Stanford, Steele, Stokesbury, Stonier, Sullivan, Sutherland, Tarleton, Ty, Theringer, Valdez, Van Werven, Vick, Voles, Wallen, Walsh, Wilcox, Wiley, Ibarra, Young. Mr. Speaker. Madam Speaker, a quorum is present. Madam Speaker, a quorum is present.
The House will be in order if members can take their seats. The flags will be escorted to the rostrum by the Sergeant Arms Color Guard, Lauren and Jada Daniels. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The prayer today will be offered by Reverend Timothy Thomas, Greater Christ Temple Church, Tacoma.
Let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we first want to say thank you for last evening's lying down and this morning's awakening, for giving us safe passage over the dangerous roadways and airways. We are certainly grateful for this day that has been set aside to celebrate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and we thank you for his great contributions to our country and his excellent example to the entire world. Now, Father, I provoke your divine presence and guidance upon this session. that your angels encamped around this state capitol building and keep everyone within these chambers safe from all hurt, harm, and danger. As these lawmakers are faced with difficult decisions that will directly affect the lives of the citizens of this state, I pray that you would give them the wisdom and strength to see far enough ahead that the decisions they make will be for the greater good, that when it's all said and done, nobody dies. And Father, let them consider the inspired words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that states, "Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right?" Finally, let the working atmosphere in this place be one of respect, unity, and optimism. And I pray that you will protect these families, these people and their families, their loved ones. Let your arms of safety be around them. And all this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you.
Thank you, Reverend. With the consent of the House, the minutes of the preceding day will stand approved. Hearing no objections, so ordered. The speaker is pleased to introduce Pastor Petrenal Wright. Pastor Wright founded the Total Experience Gospel Choir in 1973 and has performed around the world, receiving numerous awards and citations. Please welcome Pastor Wright.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone, everyone. Well, Lord, we don't need another mountain, for there are mountains and hillsides enough to climb. There are oceans and rivers enough to last until the end of time. What the world needs now is L-O-V, love, 'cause it's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for every Thank you so very much. The song that I'm going to sing now is one that I sing at least 100 times a year. And I don't get enough of it because it goes like this. Reach out and touch somebody's hand and make the world a better place. Yes, we can. You reach out and touch somebody's hand and make the world a better place. Yes, we can. I know that we can. So take a little time out of your busy day to give a little bit of encouragement to someone who may have lost their way. Come on and just try. Would I be talking a little too strong if I ask each of you to share a problem that's not your own? Well, we can change things when we all start giving. So why don't we all just reach out and touch somebody's hand and make the world a better place? I know we can. Come on and reach out and touch somebody's hand and make the world a better place. I know we can. Reach out and touch somebody's hand and make the world a better place. I just believe we can. Gonna give you one more chance. Oh, reach out and touch somebody's hand and make this world a better place. Yeah. We can. And God bless.
Thank you, Pastor Wright. That was stunningly beautiful, and we're so fortunate to have you here today. Thank you. Can we give one more round? That was just incredible. The speaker is pleased to introduce students from the Institute for Community Leadership and who are here to speak on the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. The Institute for Community Leadership conducts classes and out-of-school programming featuring civic engagement and social responsibility as a means to fortify academic excellence in school and community problem solving. They are in Olympia today to commemorate the contributions of Martin Luther King Jr. and will share insights of Dr. King's work at constructing inclusion civil society. So please welcome Keila, Veliz from Kent Meridian High School and Firdowza, Isse from Kent Meridian High School from my district.
Thank you for the work you do for our state's families, schools, and students. For making it through the sacrifices leadership brings upon you and your families. Today we celebrate Dr. King's 90th birthday, and we find ourselves struggling as individuals and as a nation. We struggle with hatred, revenge, racism, and a great indifference towards others. It is dark in America today. Dr. King teaches us, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light could do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love could do that. Today, our nation's survival depends on love. Dr. King's work of building the beloved community means turning towards one another, not on one another. Never succumb to the temptation of becoming bitter. As you press on for justice, be sure to move with dignity and discipline. Constructing a more loving Washington means making sure all students, no matter economic background, race, social status, or academic standing, are civically engaged. It means addressing bullying in the halls. It means addressing social media so we don't end up addicted. It means taking care of our seniors so they can pass on their experiences to us. It means livable wage jobs so our parents can parent us. It is cruel and perhaps the root of all cruelty to see economic injustice and not recognize the fact. Dr. King teaches our problem today is that we have allowed our internal realm to become lost in our external. We have made life a competition and we can't keep up. We have divided ourselves into self-centered silos. Our very lives require us to change. Our precious representatives, we have delegated you to serve our needs, to further design a better way for all of us to live together as sisters and brothers. Happy Dr. King Day. Thank you.
Good morning. May the power and significance of Dr. King's nonviolence bring answers and insights to all of us. We are honored to learn from you as you carry out the essential task of deciding how we, the people of Washington State, might resolve some of our challenges. Dr. King teaches that one of the most important aspects of practicing nonviolence is to maintain a high degree of curiosity. Nonviolence is about repeating the question, why? Most of the time, we are defensive when people question our views. Too much individualism closes off our search for understanding. Leadership means seeking the root cause of a situation and seeking deep, long-lasting solutions to bring out cohesion. Today, Dr. King's 90th birthday. We find ourselves with our federal government shut down. Millions of Americans and tens of thousands of Washingtonians are suffering. We ask you to do whatever you can to send a message, to intervene, to restart the United States government. We are all interconnected. Dr. King teaches, what affects one directly affects all indirectly. No individual can live alone, and no state in this nation can do its work alone. Dr. King calls upon us to get involved and stay involved. Our democracy is threatened by too little participation. Civic engagement is necessary. All students need and deserve civic education that promotes civic engagement and social responsibility. Dr. King teaches, we can all get more together than we can apart. As we go forward into 2019, may curiosity and wisdom be our tools for constructing stronger bonds of friendship. May we apply compassion and respect to forge a stronger democracy. Thank you.
Wow, very powerful speeches. Thank you both. Incredibly talented. I think I know who's going to be filling my shoes. So thank you very much. The speaker is pleased to recognize Dr. Nyla Rosen and the students from the Institute for Community Leadership. Will they please stand and be recognized? Thank you for joining us today. House Resolution 4602. The clerk will read.
Whereas today, the third Monday of January 2019, the citizens of Washington join our nation in honoring the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And whereas Dr. King was born January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. He attended classes in the segregated public school system of Atlanta, where he graduated high school at the age of 15. He completed his doctorate degree at Boston University in 1955, and whereas Dr. King inspired a social justice movement that influenced our nation to see past the differences of our skin and embrace the diversity of our communities. He dedicated for equality and justice, not for some, but for all of our people.
The good lady from the 47th to move adoption of the amendment.
Speaker,
the resolution. Yes.
I move adoption of the resolution honoring the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
It has been moved to adopt Resolution 4602. Remarks the good lady from the 47th, Representative Entman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand here before you today because of the sacrifices of my mother, my grandmother, and a man of faith who fought for justice. I grew up in Rainier Vista, a low-income housing project in Seattle. My mother did not have a college degree, but she inspired me to greater things. My grandmother moved here from Louisiana so that my mother could attend college at Western Washington University. I was lucky to have a family that loved me and a community that supported me. My educational opportunities began in the inaugural class of Seattle King County Head Start. My mom also was encouraged to continue her education through both being a part of the Parent Council and volunteering in the classroom in Head Start. From those opportunities, she was afforded a scholarship paid for in part by Seattle Public Schools so they could diversify their teaching force. My mom went on to be an educator in Seattle Public Schools for 27 years. My passion for education also grew as a student at Franklin High School in a lawn society class taught by a teacher by the name of Rick Nagel. He taught me about Brown versus the Board of Education, the unfair and unequal treatment of people of color who wanted to attain an education in this country, and he ignited the fire in me to fight that injustice. Today, my entire family is blessed. blessed because of Dr. King's fight for injustice, blessed because of the efforts of my mother and my grandmother. I have a nephew who teaches at Bellevue College, teaching sociology and African American studies. My niece is the lead demographer in Seattle Public Schools with a PhD from UCLA. My son is a computer science engineer with a degree from the University of Washington, and my daughter is a Tacoma firefighter with an undergraduate degree from Emory University in Economics and International Business and a master's degree from Embry-Riddle University in Supply Chain Logistics. None of this would have happened without the work of Dr. Martin Luther King. He said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." Not because justice is inevitable, only because good will prevail when everyday people stand up and fight. Dr. King knew that evil could win. That is why he stood up and fought against a social system that held people down. He stood up against the political system that had tried to silence him and many others. He stood up because he felt he had a responsibility not just to Black people, but to all in our society who are oppressed. He was called a troublemaker. He was called militant. He was called an uppity Negro. In response, Dr. King said, "The question is not whether we will be extremist, but what kind of extremist will we be? Will we be extremists for hate or an extremist for love? What kind of extremist will we be?" I choose love, extreme love, even when I am told to be quiet, even when I am told that this is not my place, even when I am told that this is not my time. Our challenge today is to choose love, to be extreme in our devotion to each other and to our common cause of bending that arc toward justice. Not just for us, but for our children and grandchildren, so that they can continue to seek that dream of equality and opportunity for all children living in these United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Good gentleman from the 35th, Representative Griffey.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Please excuse Representative Vols.
The member is excused. Are there further remarks? The good lady from the 25th, Representative Chambers.
Is this thing on? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House, it is an honor for me to stand here today and reflect on the life of a great American hero, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day was always my favorite day of the school year, punctuated by assemblies, celebration, and performances honoring Dr. King's legacy. As a kid in the 80s, I decorated my bedroom with posters of those I looked up to and admired. I had a poster of Dr. King alongside American Beauty Marilyn Monroe, my favorite wrestler, Hulk Hogan, and horses. I really wanted a horse. Madam Speaker, I look around this chamber today and I can't help but think that we are a representation of Dr. King's vision. We are men and women of different races, cultures, backgrounds, sexual orientations, religious beliefs, and political beliefs. But together we share a common purpose to make Washingtonians' lives better. In legislatures across the United States and in Congress, we are seeing more diversity than ever before. And that's incredible when you consider that just 5 decades ago, segregated bathrooms in schools were the norm in many states, as were other racist policies that divided us. We should take the time today to acknowledge how far we've come in this country since those dark days. But with that acknowledgement also comes the realization that we have much more work to do, not only on the issues of race, but when it comes to how we treat each other, no matter what our differences may be. We are all aware division today is rampant. Political figures, pundits, and keyboard warriors wage war on a daily basis in an attempt to satisfy their urge to get the last word in, no matter how painful or destructive. It seems there are fewer and fewer people willing to take the high road, so they go low and their fans follow. We also remain divided when it comes to race. Every year, the political firm Gallup asks Americans how they feel about the state of race relations in America. In 2008, 51% of Americans said they were somewhat satisfied or very satisfied with the state of race relations. By 2015, that number had fallen to 30% and has hovered around there every year since. This is not okay, and we all know it's not okay. The question is, what do we do about it? Across America today, there will be a lot of speeches about the life and legacy of Dr. King. Google searches for inspirational MLK quotes will have skyrocketed over the weekend as people recite those beautiful words to audiences such as this. But my fear is very little will change. And I say that not to be cynical, but because I'm not sure Americans truly have the desire to live out Dr. King's words as much as they have the desire to recite them. When we have made so much progress, we have to ask ourselves why we still have so much left to do. I don't pretend to know the answer to that, but I do know that people aren't born hating one another. Somewhere along the line, people veer off course, and many never get back on it. That's why it's important that moms and dads take the time to teach their children that the content of people's character is what matters above all else, that every single person has value. That doesn't mean everyone is easy to love, but the Christian faith Dr. King and I share teaches that love is from God, and if God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. There's no exception to that clause. Many Americans today are in crisis. There's an epidemic of loneliness and brokenness, and that's because life is hard, and it's even harder when we are so disconnected from one another. Increasingly, people are desperate to connect with those who will take the time to sit with them, to pour love into them, and love them. That's a reality that crosses racial lines and every other line you can think of. If we are truly intentional about loving one another, I believe things will get better. If we do nothing but recite Dr. King's words and hope for the best, they won't. In closing, I urge people to ask themselves today if they are truly loving their neighbor, if they are truly listening and trying to understand those different backgrounds and beliefs, if they are doing everything they can to live out the words of Dr. King. I hope that we will take an honest look at ourselves and that we will use this leadership role God has given us to make a difference in the lives of those we love and in the lives of those we represent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The good gentleman from the 3rd District, Representative Riccelli.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Please excuse Representative Morris.
Members excused. Additional remarks. The good lady from the 40th District, Representative Lakanoff.
Thank you. Madam Chair, my colleagues, have you ever shaken someone's hand and watched them wipe it across their pants and not look you in the eye? I came across this when I came down from Alaska to the lower 48. It was my experience. When I decided to run for the People's House, it was told to me, people said, this is not my America. They said, if you had to choose between being Native and being American, what would you choose? They said to me, "You don't belong here. Go back to where you come from." It's with courage that I stand here today. Think about that. Go back to where you come from. What do you do? What do you do? You rise. We rise. And I remembered, I am the first American. I am the first American, and I'm honored to be in this room with all of you. Our native bloodlines, our cultures, my values are deeply rooted into the lands and the waters and the resources. It's 2019. We can do better. And we are. Now, I'm here today as your first Native American woman to serve in the House of Representatives. And it's an honor to look at all of the beautiful faces on this floor. I'm here because I, too, believe in Dr. King's dream of equality, a dream that's never going to be finished. Women now make up 40% of the Washington State Legislature and 25% of the state legislatures across the United States. We are at the decision-making table. I am a decision maker. I'm a 7th-generation decision maker. I'm a woman, I'm a mom. I can think of no other way. Women have taken Dr. King's dreams and we've made it our own. You'll see often in me, in my hands, I have one hand holding the teaching of my ancestors. In my other hand, I have the teachings and the unwritten stories of those children yet to come. Dr. King and I share these teachings and this dream of honoring our past, of our elders, so we can make a better work for our children. Not some children, all children. Today is a day of remembrance. Today, I remember my grandmother. I remember how much she suffered to give back to her family, to make sure those grandchildren's grandchildren's grandchildren, whom she'll never meet, have a future. I grew up in a small place most of you probably never know of. It's a place that makes up who I am today. It's a small Alaska rural community called Yakutat, a place that carries my bloodline. I carry a place of where my name comes from. My name is Hicks-Chissy. My grandmother taught me to respect our culture, our traditions, and to always remember to honor all living creatures. Along with our elders, she made sure that we took care of everybody in our community. Everybody was created, and everybody should be treated equally. No one ever went hungry. No one was ever alone. And no one was ever treated as if they were never good enough. Everybody mattered. These are my teachings. As a little girl, I looked up to her. I looked up to my grandmother. She was a leader. She was a fighter. For this little girl, she was my hero. Washington State has many heroes to remember for their words and their deeds. They suffered and sacrificed for the same dream. Equality for all people. Equality for all people. I remember Kip Takuda. I remember Bernie Whitebear. I remember Bob Santos. I remember Billy Frank Jr. Billy Frank Jr. and Dr. King intertwined in history as heroes who fought for the principles of human rights. They did it in their way, with peace and respect and love for all. In 2015, Billy received the Martin Luther King Jr. Distinguished Service Award for Humanity Achievement. Just as Dr. King had sit-ins for segregation, Billy Frank, he had fish-ins. Let me tell you a little story. You know, 1945, under the Squally River in the bitter cold, Billy was in the river. It was quiet. He was in his canoe. He had a fishing net in one hand, and he had a dog salmon in the other. And as he pulled that dog salmon over the canoe, he heard this big booming voice across the silent night on the river. "You're under arrest." The game warden came running down the bank. You guys can see how intimidating running down the bank. Game warden came running down the bank. And Billy yelled back, "Leave me alone. I live here. I fish here." This is our Washington story. Billy would be arrested over 50 times for his peaceful fish-ins, and his life would never be the same. But like Dr. King, he never gave up. And while we still have work to do, I still have hope. I dream with all of you. I raise my hands in gratitude to Dr. King and Billy Frank Jr. and so many others who suffer to ensure that we all sit here as one. Dr. King was a leader, a man who inspired us, not just by his words, but by his deeds. He was a man, he was a warrior. He was a warrior who fought against inequality and injustices. Dr. King was and is our hero. This man knew that real change could only happen if everyday people did the right thing. This man's spirit stood with Nathan Phillips in Washington, D.C. this weekend when he shared his traditional songs with silent resilience and the courage within his heart. He did this in a peaceful manner. I don't stand here alone today. I don't stand here alone today. I stand with all of you who have welcomed me, who make me feel as if I am in a safe place, as if I am equal. If you take a moment and you just close your eyes, you will see and hear your heroes. You will hear their voices come to you. Remember their teachings. Remember to rise as Dr. King did for all of us. And remember to shake the hand of your colleague next to you and say, "Thank you for being courageous and being here today." For we truly are in the people's house. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional remarks. The good gentleman from the 13th, Representative Dent.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to begin by saying it is truly an honor to stand here in this body and share some thoughts and some feelings about Dr. Martin Luther King. In December, I was honored to travel to Washington, D.C. for some legislative business, so we went a day early. I've had a passion for this country and for this institution all of my life, since I was a small child. And so I woke on December 16th excited to be in Washington, D.C. and have an opportunity to be a tourist for a day, to tour the great monuments that represent this great republic that we call home. Our first step was the Lincoln Memorial, a shrine and elected in honor of President Abraham Lincoln. I walked up the steps, and I reached the top. I turned to the east towards the Washington Monument, and it took my breath away. It hit me. Not necessarily the view, because it's a great view. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to stand. But I realized that this is where Dr. Martin Luther King stood and gave his "I Have a Dream" speech. I'm older than most of you in this chamber, and I remember this. I remember it well. It was so important in our time. Dr. King began his address by referencing President Abraham Lincoln signing the Emancipation Proclamation. At that moment, the March on Washington, to me, came to life in a real way. I was totally awestruck and humbled as I turned and walked inside the monument and read the words engraved above Lincoln's statue. Madam Speaker, may I read?
Please proceed.
In this temple and in the hearts of the people for whom he saved the Union, the memory of Abraham Lincoln is enshrined forever. These two men, although born in different times, different cultures, different places, both desired harmony in times of civil unrest. Both wanted to save and unite the Union. Looking out on the mall on that cold and dreary December Sunday morning in 2018, in sharp contrast to that balmy August day in 1963, I tried to envision the over 250,000 people who listened to him. And I can only imagine the hopes and the dreams that were in the hearts of those people in attendance. Although only one of 10 speakers, Dr. King shared his vision for an America where all people worked and lived in harmony, with the common goal of building a better America. 12 hours prior to standing in front of these folks, which is something I'm guilty of, he had no idea what he was going to say the next day. And in the end, he strayed from what notes he had in front of him when renowned gospel singer Mahalia Jackson shouted out from the crowd, "Tell them about the dream, Martin. Tell them about the dream." And her words spurred him to improvise the part of his speech that most recognized by adding, "I have a dream," in front of each point that spelled out his desires for America. My favorite section, as most like it is for many of us, is where he stated, may I read again?
Please proceed.
"I have a dream my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today." His speech changed the way the Lincoln Memorial was viewed and raised it to greater prominence. It elevated the monument to a physical reference that eternally connects President Abraham Lincoln and Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. King believed in a peaceful approach to bring about social change. He used pragmatic grace to win the hearts of others. In his The Drum Major Instinct sermon, he challenged us to live a life of service and laid out what was required to reach this goal. In Dr. King's words, to serve requires not entitlements or credentials, but requires a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. He delivered this sermon in 1968, several years after the March in Washington, at the church he co-pastored with his father in Atlanta. It was one of his final sermons, given just 2 months to the day before he died. Dr. King wrote 5 books, gave thousands of speeches. Many of his speeches or sermons, many of his ideas, hopes, and dreams for this country don't receive the attention they rightly deserve. As we celebrate Dr. King's legacy today, I want to point out the life of service he lived, and in the end, how he felt that he may prematurely take his last breath because of his belief in the principles that he displayed throughout his life. He was a man who made the ultimate sacrifice for his country. We as public servants have a responsibility. Actually, we have an obligation. All of us in this room have an obligation to keep Dr. King's dream alive, respect this great man, and forever honor his legacy. And if we do that, we will make this world a better place. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. Additional remarks? Seeing none, the question before the House is adoption of House Resolution 4602, honoring the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The resolution is adopted. The good gentleman from the 37th, Representative Pettigrew.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There will be a Democratic caucus immediately. Please get there as soon as possible. We have guests.
Thank you. The good gentleman from the 17th, Representative Harris.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Republicans will caucus now.
The House will be at ease for purpose of caucus. House will be in order. Third order of business, message from the Secretary of State. The clerk will read.
Pursuant to Article 2, Section
Last
1,
line.
Kim Wyman, Secretary of State.
Message received. There are more messages.
Pursuant to Article 2, Section 1, the
Last
Washington
line.
State, Kim Wyman, Secretary of State.
Message received. There are more messages.
Pursuant to Article 2, Section 1 of the Washington State Constitution,
Last line.
Kim Wyman, Secretary of State.
Message received. There are no more messages. With the consent of the House, fourth order of business. With the consent of the House, the bills, memorials, and resolutions printed on today's introduction sheet will be considered third reading under the fourth order of business and will be referred to the committee so designated. Hearing no objection, so ordered. With the consent of the House will now adjourn until 9:55 a.m. Tuesday, January 22nd, the 9th legislative day. Hearing no objection, so ordered. The House is now adjourned until 9:55 a.m. Tuesday, January 22nd.